co-sponsor, along with Mr. Rooney, this legislation before us, 205, the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Castor. For much time as she may consume.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized for as much time as she may consume.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank Chairman Grijalva for being a champion for America's natural resources. And in doing so, you're a champion for jobs and the economy. And we know this in Florida. And that's why I rise in strong support of H.R. 205, Protecting and Securing Florida's Coastline Act of 2019. It's a pleasure to be here on the floor with my Republican colleague, Francis Rooney. He is passionate about protecting the state of Florida because our way of life is at risk when you bring oil rigs off of our beaches. It threatens our way of life. And he understands very well, as a successful businessman, that when you threaten our way of life and you threaten our natural environment and our beaches, you're threatening our economy and jobs. You know, even though it was 9 years ago, the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster is still fresh in my mind, and it's fresh in the minds of my neighbors that live all across the Gulf Coast. It was devastating. April 20th, 2010. You all probably remember because CNN had the oil well, the video from the oil well that continued to spew oil into the Gulf of Mexico through May, through all of June, all of July, August, and they didn't cap the well until late in September. It wreaked havoc, not just on Florida's economy and not just on our beautiful environment, but on people's lives. I remember very well holding a woman in my arms who was a small business owner from the Clearwater area. The oil didn't even wash up on the shores of Tampa Bay or the beautiful Pinellas Coast beaches or down to Sanibel Island, but the economy took a hit. They lost everything they had. It wiped out mom and pop businesses, restaurants, hotels, everyone that relies on clean water and clean beaches for their livelihoods. Fishermen couldn't fish. It was a catastrophe. Gulf seafood was off the menu. And that meant people weren't coming to the mom and pop restaurants for their meals. In addition to all that, whether it was deformed fish and species, there was permanent damage to the ecosystem. Researchers that I work with at the University of South Florida say that even today, on the floor of the Gulf of Mexico, in the trench off of the beautiful Florida Panhandle, there's still a layer of what they call dirty snow. Because if you remember, they had to pour dispersants and chemicals onto the area of the blowout to make sure that the oil did disperse. Well, that didn't just disappear. It ended up in the food chain and in the entire ecosystem. And it's still out there today impacting the food web and everything we love about the state of Florida. In fact, the University of South Florida College of Marine Sciences has done a lot of research on this. They did 12 separate voyages over 7 years on the USF research ship Weatherbird. They say, interestingly, the areas where you have oil rigs, they have determined that fish species in the area of the Gulf are gone. There's lack of diversity there. The entire food web is impacted. This is going to impact us for decades to come, and there's no way to make it up. The deep sea is not recovering. In fact, clearly visible abnormalities have been chronicled just recently. So the environmental impact is right in front of us. The economic impact, as well as those small business owners. The U.S. Travel Association estimates that we lost $22 billion due to the BP disaster. Our bill will ensure that that never happens again. because it says permanently. That moratorium that a bipartisan vote of the Congress took in 2006 to say until 2022 you can't drill in that part of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, this bill will extend that permanently. Because this is a dangerous, dirty business. And Florida over time has chosen not to industrialize its coastline. Our economy is based on clean beaches and clean water. And Floridians have spoken, by the way. Last November, there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot that said we're going to ban offshore oil drilling in state waters. It often is just a few miles off the coast. It passed by 69%. So I wish the Trump administration would listen. But when you install an oil lobbyist as the head of the Interior Department, I guess we know that big oil is calling the shots. Well, we're going to say no today. We're going to say the people of Florida, in a bipartisan way, with a united Florida delegation, we're going to say no. It's not needed, it's not wanted, and it's not the future. It's not needed because America is already an exporter of oil and gas. We don't need to expand into areas that are too precious to drill. It's not wanted. It's not welcome. Even the Department of Defense has said this is an important military testing area off of the bases in the Panhandle. They have already weighed in to say, don't bring the oil rigs into this military testing zone. It's too special to drill. So today, once again, a united Florida delegation is asking Congress to continue to recognize this part of Florida as a special place and to continue the moratorium permanently. Because Floridians and folks all over the country that come to our beautiful state to vacation, they know it's not wanted, it's not needed, and our future is clean energy. That is what we should be investing in. That is what we should be debating and spending time here today. That is the future of the United States of America. That's where the jobs of the future are going to come from. Jobs in solar and wind energy are already far surpassing jobs in fossil fuels. The climate crisis requires that America be smarter, and we don't double down on the dirty policies of the past, dirty oil drilling. So for all of those reasons, let's demonstrate it here today, push back on the Trump administration's attempt to open up the Gulf beaches to oil drilling. Let's say no. We've got a bipartisan Florida delegation that is standing up, united, and I want to thank all of my colleagues from Florida for their leadership year in and year out on this issue. Let's send a strong vote today. Let's send a strong message today and vote yes on H.R. 205. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlelady from Florida yields back.